This PC right here is hot, hot, hot. The components are a little bit expensive. This entire build cost me over $3,200 retail. If I hadn't bought them at the time I did, it would have cost me well over $4,000. I want to do another video, but today it's on my PC rather than my keyboards. This is what's used to stream, this is what's used to game, this is what's used to make those videos, and it is my main workhorse. In this video, we're gonna talk about who I am, what I do, when I bought this, why I bought this, and where I bought this. I think that's all the 5 W's, right? To summarize, if you ain't got time, I'm a content creator. I built a supercomputer and I put it in a small case because reasons. I wanted to try a new challenge. It's my first PC and I had a lot of fun building it. And it runs really hot, but I'll talk about what I did to bring the temps down. I am a full-time content creator as well as a freelance videographer. I use this computer to do all my work on one PC. So in terms of what programs I use OBS, play some Valorant, Warzone, Overwatch, and I use Adobe Premiere, Adobe Audition. I don't really do any kind of modeling, 2D or 3D, but this computer can handle anything I throw at it. The components, what is in my PC? Well, the case is an NR200 case. I've already taken it apart. I have 120mm fans for exhaust on the top. I can't mount an AIO up there because of the mounting system of the NR200. It's using screwless installation. It's just not very sturdy. It's just plastic up there. I got 140mm on the 280mm rad. This is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 280mm AIO. It's one of the best performing, quietest AIOs on the market, and it's great for a small form factor PC. What I actually have to do is unhinge the case to get the rad in and out. I know it's excessive, but in a small case like this, I wanted to get the best thermals possible, and that was with a Arctic Liquid Freezer 280mm AIO. Right here is the Gigabyte 3080 Aorus Master. It's one of my favorite parts of this build. I got lucky to buy it at the beginning of the GPU shortage. This is before the mining boom in February, which made everything impossible to get. With this powers everything. The ironic thing is, right here is an LCD screen and I can't see it because I use a mesh side panel. As for the CPU, under here we have a 5900X. It's a pretty powerful CPU. It boosts clocks higher than the 5950X, so theoretically it should be better for gaming. But I started looking at the actual specs and the benchmarks. The 5950X, due to its higher base clock, actually gives you better frames in a heavy CPU game like Warzone, which is the only game that actually gives this PC trouble. The motherboard that the CPU sits in is the Gigabyte Aorus Pro AX. It's the B550i. I swapped from the Asus ROG X570i because the Asus ROG X570i has active VRM cooling, so it's a very small fan. It would start whirring at a high pitch and it was super annoying. And the problem is, because I can't even control the fan in the BIOS on the Asus ROG X570i, I couldn't ramp it down. It would just heat up, it would whir for like 10-20 minutes. I added thermal pads, I took it apart, I almost tried swapping the fan or adding a fan, and then I realized this is dumb. Let's just sell it and go kind of downgrade to the B550i, which has less USB ports, which are very valuable for me as a streamer, but has passive VRM cooling and is much quieter as a result. And the other thing is, it's current gen, so I didn't have to update the BIOS to accept the Zen 3 chip. You saw this hanging out here. This is a sneaky little addition I added. It's a Chromax fan, 90mm, and I actually just wedged it in here. I haven't screwed it in yet because I wasn't sure if I was going to keep it. This is an extra little exhaust fan. The PSU is a Corsair S5750. It's one of the best PSUs for a case like this. It's one of the only ones that can provide that much wattage. It's pretty reliable. Cables that came with it were nice sleeve cables, but they were longer than what I needed for this case. I wanted to not block as much airflow as I could, so I bought unsleeved cables from P-Slate. It worked really well. After a while, after using it, P-Slate came to one of my streams and they offered to replace my cables with color matching sleeve cable. Nice little upgrade, and considering my entire case is built around Noctua fans, you gotta do the Noctua themed custom cables all the way through, and it looks so nice. Even cables for the SSD. And the GPU, of course, is the Gigabyte Aorus Master, the 3080 variants. Very nice power. Using the same unhinging method, that is how I get my very large GPU in and out. The GPU, as you can tell, is really filling up the entire space. So even though it's outside NR200 spec,
I made it fit by taking apart the case and putting it back together.
I bought this because I wanted to play Cyberpunk, and then I realized Cyberpunk was a bunk game. I have an array of M.2 SSDs. I have a 980 Pro 1TB here, and on the back I have a 970 2TB, and on the front I have two 860 EVOs, and I really like having all this SSD storage because I store a lot of videos. With video editing, I can do it with the SSDs, and I can do it with external hard drives. Having a bunch of cables connected into it makes it look kind of ugly. I really like PCA Customs because the website is really easy to navigate. They actually have options where you can just list your case and then list what components you use, and they'll make the cables to the spec. You don't have to measure, and it's really easy to just get cables like that. They run sales pretty frequently, and you can get unsleeved cables, you can get sleeve cables, whatever your budget permits. This video is not sponsored by P-Slate. They just sent it out, and I'm really grateful because I definitely ran out of money. This computer had already burned a huge hole in my wallet, so I really had to cut costs somewhere. And the funny thing is, PCA Customs, these custom cables, dude, they're gonna get covered by my rad anyway, and I don't even have a tempered glass panel. But hey, when I open this up, I enjoy looking at the color match and the theme of it. At the end of the day, it's not just about specs and performance. We want it to look good too. Definitely not necessary. You can get any custom cable. You don't have to have them sleeved. I went with the mesh side panel instead of the tempered glass because I didn't want risk of high thermals and thermal throttling. I knew that this was gonna be hot. So the mesh side panel, and I just gave up my LCD. In terms of benchmarks, I'll show some benchmarks on the screen, but Overwatch runs 200 plus frames. My renders for videos are very short. It's hard to give you an exact benchmark for rendering, but I'll give you a 4K timeline. I'll show up on the screen, and we'll see how long that takes to render. So 4K, multiple tracks, and some color grading. And in Warzone, that's the only game that pushes this CPU and GPU. That's mostly because that game is not very optimized. So in Warzone, I get maybe 130, 140 frames. I made everything low. I turned off DLSS, and I turned off ray tracing. All the settings are low, and I'm running a 4K 144 Hz monitor, so 144 Hz is the goal. In terms of streaming, I can stream Warzone, I can run OBS, I can run Valorant, and all those games while streaming, not a problem at all. Single PC, I don't have to have a stream PC, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want to have two PCs, and that's why I put a little bit more money to get the 5900X and to get the 3080. Rather than going a little bit more budget, I would rather just deck it out and be done. In terms of temps, that's what you want to know, right? Before I installed this Chromax fan, the thing that pushed my CPU the most was Warzone. If you look right here, this GPU, the intake is on the bottom. So it's dumping hot air right onto the CPU. And with that, if I ran silent fan speeds in the BIOS, it would cook the CPU. I ended up going 90 degrees Celsius, 91 degrees Celsius easily. Normal fan curves, I ended up getting 86, 88 degrees Celsius, sometimes 89. That's just running Warzone for an hour. That's pretty scary. It's still within spec. It can still run up to 91 and it'll just thermal throttle. It will never kill your CPU. I don't like running it that hot. Most people with regular mid-sized cases, they get 70 degrees temps, at max 80. So I'm going like mid 80, high 80. I have two exhausts coming up, right? I guess it wasn't enough. So adding another exhaust, small little exhaust fan in the back, of course will increase sound levels and decibels, especially under load. It's not gonna be silent anyway. I was able to drop my temps by 4 to 5 degrees. So now I'm capping out at 81, 82 degrees Celsius. So with this case, I undervolted everything. The stock everything will run 89 degrees. Undervolting brought me down maybe 1, 2 degrees, maybe 3. The undervolting can only do so much. Once I put in that fan, as well as the undervolt of this CPU, as well as the undervolt of the GPU, I was able to get pretty good temps. And now I can maybe decrease the fans a little bit to make it a little quieter. There's always a lot of tweaking you can do. I've only started undervolting the CPU using PBO. I haven't really gotten into it. I could probably eke out a little bit more performance if I spend more time to really dial it in. Every chip is different. Take the time to learn how to do it properly rather than just getting someone's undervolt on the internet. I already did it all for the GPU, which lands me around 875 millivolts at 1890 megahertz. That's the best I can get. Once I went down to 850, 825, it started crashing in some games. All right, the what took forever, I'm sorry. So when did I build this? Before October, we already knew that 30 series GPUs were coming and people were like, oh, I gotta build a new PC. At the time, I already had a PC. It was an A700K with a 1080 Ti. My PC didn't really need an upgrade, and I was like, am I able to sell this to upgrade? How much would it cost? So I did what any rational person would do. I didn't have a need for a new PC, so I just gave my PC to my sister. And then I was like, hey, I need a new computer now. So that's why I got this. And if I had waited till February 2021, because some people saw the low stock at the launch of the 30 series GPUs, and they're like, I'll just wait. It only got worse. 3 months later, when February 2021 came around and crypto prices started rising, everyone started mining, and now the supply that was pretty much non-existent before was now impossible to get. So luckily I built this all around October, November timeframe. I was able to get everything for retail. The only hard thing that I couldn't get was actually the PSU. I actually had to hunt that on a hardware swap, some guy was actually willing to sell it to me for retail because he had an extra. The fans were out of stock for a little bit. The AIO was a little hard to get to. Everything came together. Right now, prices are ridiculous. I honestly tell people you don't need a 3080. You probably don't need a 3070. And unfortunately, 2080 Ti's, 2080s, 1080 Ti's, they're all way higher than what they were prior to COVID. Worldwide, there's a shortage of everything right now. So why did I build this? I got bored. It was COVID, I was building keyboards, why not build a computer? That's really it. That's why I chose a challenging build, and I put myself through hell to put this together and multiple times, but it was a fun learning experience, and now I feel more comfortable while building a PC. That's it. We just get bored and we like spending money. And I wanted a more powerful computer so I could stream games. Love streaming, building keyboards, but I think long run, I will most likely be streaming games more regularly because it's way less stress. So funny thing about this computer that is this really small computer that you can put on your desk. My desk is 4 feet wide. And that's because I bought an 8-foot table and I share it with my fiance and we both work from home. So we just cut it down the middle, I have 4 feet. So if I put this on the table, it won't fit with my streaming monitor because there's two. There's a landscape one and a portrait one. So I put this on an IKEA cart. I swear to God, it's an IKEA cart. I was looking at furniture, some kind of like side table to put it on, but the IKEA cart is so much better. It's black, it blends in. Put a $3,200 computer before tax on a freaking $50 IKEA cart. So what are my final thoughts on this computer? I love it. It's worth every penny because I was able to get it at retail. I don't have any fears about my content creation. I never am worried about my computer getting overloaded. My renders are fast, so I save more time. I can stream anything, I can play anything, and I just want something to do because we've been locked down for so long. I've had this computer since October, November, and it's now May. I've been able to use it for about half a year. And I love it. Did I need a small computer? No, I definitely did not need to stress myself by getting a case that could only fit certain GPUs. Luckily, the NR200 can fit even in Aorus Master. Most small cases can't do that. So I'm glad I picked a budget, kind of boring NR200. Kind of is weird that I'm putting these expensive components in an $80 case, but if it works, it works. Why pay more when you can pay less? I love the custom cables, it looks aesthetic. I was able to calm down the high temps by finally just adding that little bit of extra exhaust. I wouldn't change anything. Actually, maybe I could have waited a little bit and gotten the Lian Li 011D Mini instead. But then I would have been stuck trying to get parts at a later time. But yeah, that's my computer. Hopefully you enjoyed this video that showcased what I use to make the content that you see on YouTube and on Twitch. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. This is my first build, so be kind to me. I'm pretty sure I'll have messed up something. That's just the nature of starting out something new. Hopefully I'll see you in the next video. This is Andy Nguyen. Peace.